first set of home games done. Let's set these predictions in before anyone. If you think you're lost, let's help you find your way. Or you can sit back, relax, and listen up to The Ball is Bay, your favorite NBA podcast in an Indian accent. Back at it again this week with your weekly dose of the NBA. If this is your first time listening to this elaborate intro, you can catch it every week on all your favorite podcast listening channels, including Libsyn, Spotify, Stitcher, and even YouTube for all you weird folks. Always remember though, the more you listen, the more something engagement, the more something monetization, and of course the more something get me out of bed every morning. Yes. Speaking of more, I've got with me as always co-host, basketball guru, and the better beard on this podcast, Vineet Devaya, joining me all the way from sunny Luxembourg, where immigrants and cross-border employees contribute to 70% of the workforce. Vineet, how are you doing this fine day?
I have nothing to say. I think the podcast is over. Whoa. You have done some research, my friend.
Well,
you've gone through Wikipedia and found out some words about Luxembourg. Look at you.
Well, you are one of the immigrant workforce there, so I had to do my...
But speaking of cross-border, we have somebody from a great institution called Crossover. So let's welcome Sean from the Crossover Academy.
Definitely. It gives us immense pleasure in our hearts and anxious butterflies in our stomachs to introduce someone who needs no introduction, but since this is a podcast and his voice isn't like Morgan Freeman, we will be introing him anyways. A warm Ball is Bay welcome to Sean Jayachandran, founder of the Crossover Academy. Welcome to the podcast, Sean. It's great that you could find some time.
Thank you guys very much. My voice isn't quite as deep as Morgan's, but I do my best. But I'm also slightly jealous that you guys say my last name better than I do. But
well, I just a podcast in an Indian accent.
This is the only podcast where that is true.
Exactly. You guys you're killing it. But I'm really excited to be here. Big fans, love what you guys are doing. Love the fact that there's genuine interest beyond the hype of basketball in India and how it's working out, and it's just great to watch how the community is growing and the fact that people are tuning in, listening, and wanting to be part of something bigger.
For us, as long as basketball grows in India, even either through the NBA or anywhere else, it's personal passion project for us. So if you could just tell us something about the Crossover Academy, I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in.
And also how you got into basketball and I think your journey as a basketball player, then how you felt like basketball could bring social change. I think that would be a good.
My God, I might just eat up your entire podcast time here. All right,
it's okay. So our moms have all the time. Our moms have all the time.
I'm jealous. I think my mom is still convinced basketball's not going to put food on the table for me. So, I think we've all heard it, so I'm good with that. But yeah, basketball. I was a soccer kid growing up. And basketball just became bigger and bigger because I was born and raised out in Western Canada. And during that Jordan era of the Bulls, the end of the Magic stuff, the Bird, it became captivating, right? And it became something you wanted to see. And I've been very, very lucky and fortunate in my athletic pursuits in that. So, when I started playing, I actually had coaches who were like, look, we need to teach you the game the right way. I was always a nerd, even more so than the average typical Indian American kid. And so even whether it was soccer, whether it was hockey, and then when it was basketball, I would go to the library and take out coaching books. And I would literally run myself through drills, okay, how do I get good at this fast? I need to catch up to kids. And so I started to play, I started to understand the game. I started to really break that down. But a lot of it was just raw flow playing, trying to mimic, the Jordan moves, the Pippins, the, unfortunately, the John Starks of the world, right? I'll come back to that in a second. But so I moved to the U.S. though when I'm 16, so right about to start 11 standard, and I get really blessed. We pick a school in the D.C. area, and the high school coach happens to be a man named Bill Sweek, and Coach Sweek I owe so much to because Coach Sweek played and won 3 rings with the legendary John Wooden at UCLA. He was on all of the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar teams.
Wow.
He was sixth man. He was a McDonald's All-American. You name it, and Coach Sweek has it. Played in Coach Pro in Europe. And so he took a look at me and was like, and it was a stereotype, right? Right away. The first thing he said was, I don't think I've seen an Indian kid play basketball. And my response was like, how about a Canadian kid, right? Like, give me something that I can intro myself in. But he really was wonderful. Like, I made the squad and we're working in, it's old school John Wooden, right? Teach you how to put on your socks so that you don't get blisters, and tie your shoes properly, to
Wow.
pyramid of success, to that high post offense, but really understanding the game and being able to manipulate the game that way. And that created a lifelong love, passion affair for me of how basketball goes beyond the lines on the court and extend everywhere. Coach was really adamant about, like, if you're not giving me the best in the classroom, or your teachers are saying that, how can I trust you that you're telling me you're giving me all you have on the court? So all of those lessons started to extend. And let's be honest, I didn't really think I was going to play, much past college. I was pretty stoked that schools wanted me to play in college in the U.S., and that was pretty exciting for a brown-skinned dude back in the day. Now we've got these game changers out here, right, who are just tearing it up. So I have a very unique story in that my mom is this rock star. I'll call her a rock star in that my mom was born and raised in an orphanage in Chennai, India, right? And if you picture what's the life of an orphan girl in India right now, to even and then take it back 60 years, you can only imagine the obstacles and stuff, right? And so she literally busts her tail and studies so hard that, like, they can't pull her out of school. Nobody can make her leave. And she gets to go to University of Madras. She immigrates to Canada, marries my dad. But like any ungrateful son growing up, right? I literally was like, yeah, mom, everybody had it hard. Yeah, mom, everybody had that life. Like, I could not imagine like what it was like to be like an orphan child in India. I just couldn't. And as I got older, I remember being there for a wedding and talking to some of these nuns, and they're like, "Oh yeah, your mom like is by far outworked everyone. Like you like don't even try, right?" And you're like, "Oh, maybe there's something there." And then I started deep diving into those numbers, right? Like, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like 1 in 5 kids in the world live in India right now."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how many kids in India live below the poverty line, the international poverty line? How many kids leave government schools before they get to high school? Like, what do these stats look like? And I'm my mom's kid, but I'm not like staying up till 3 a.m. studying by candlelight like her. Like, I was the kid who was maybe shooting baskets till 3 a.m. So, so for me, it became like, how do I connect these worlds? And that's where the impetus for crossover came from, right? Like, I started playing with the idea of, hey, Coach Wooden laid some foundation. My mom's laid some foundation. India's there. And I've always hated the idea that we expect those less fortunate to have to work harder than everyone else. I just didn't like the idea of telling like a 10-year-old kid you have to go study more versus how can I reach that kid and teach through fun, right?
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
what,
Exactly.
hoops is my love, right? And hoops in India is cool because it's known, like, and it's known more now than 9 years ago, but it's known, and at the same time there isn't like this huge mass playing pool yet.
Yeah.
So when I introduced it, and I introduced it as a co-ed idea too, the boys weren't far enough ahead of the girls to exclude the girls, right?
Okay.
It's not cricket, it's not football, where the boys have been playing for years, and therefore maybe when they're excluding a girl, a lot of it's also that they're not good. It kind of gave the boys and the girls an actual level playing court to start on, and so we kind of evolved it. And with my connections from college hoops, we started to grow it. Right, we started to look at how social change can come, but where can we make impact? So we started bringing in these college players. We have now over 2,100 kids who have gone through crossover. We're seeing 85% of them stay in school. We're seeing almost 60% girls participation, and we make no bones about it. We're not here to be the next $1 million arm. I'm not saying we're producing a pro, but I'm saying we're producing another 2,000 kids in India who love basketball and are finding a way to use basketball to further themselves in life.
Exactly. I mean, basketball is a sport, but what you're doing with their lives, I think, is has got much more impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
if our listeners have been listening to our previous podcast, it's a lot of just pretty mundane stuff with our opinions, just shouting on each other, getting
Yeah.
guests, and opinionating on crossovers and dunks, and so it's really good to have a change of sort of tone and a little bit more of a kind of a serious. No, I wouldn't say serious, but a little bit more of a.
And something which makes a little more impact in this world.
I mean, no worries. I can argue basketball with you guys for the best of the days too. So I'm ready to do both sides of that.
In that case, let's get to the arguing part of it. We will
Yes,
Yeah.
this is the fun part.
Cool. Where are we starting?
We're starting off with the city of brotherly love. Philadelphia showed absolutely no love to Toronto. They
Smashed them last night.
Smashed them, absolutely. I think it was this morning in India. Kyle Lowry walking triple single. Embiid just looked big. And Kawhi, I think, just went expressionless. Like he was dumbstruck as to how this could happen in this city. We'll start off with you, Sean. I mean, I think we all expected Toronto to, impose themselves. I was of the opinion that because the more better players on the court are on the Philly side, I would have expected Philly to be the dominant team because they have the best center and they can kind of nullify Ben Simmons' absence of shooting with Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler. But after the first game, I don't think anyone expected Philly to be 2-1 up in the series. So what's up with that?
That's a great question, right? What's up with that? For me, I think I was of your opinion, right? Like, I think there's a lot of length and a lot of strength in Philadelphia. I think they've been building this for a long time, and there's a lot of, manifest destiny, right? Like, they feel like this is where they're supposed to be, whether or not it's true. And I think whether or not we like it, Toronto's still a new team, right? Nick Nurse is new, and Kawhi's new, right? This isn't old Toronto, right? And Spicy P's new, right? Like, he's still finding himself, right? Like, there's a good example in that last game, where Siakam had a chance to throw down on Embiid and instead leaned away from him and let Embiid come and get the block, right? He didn't go and say, I'm going to assert my will and I'm going to at least try to throw it on you and draw the foul. He legitimately leaned away from him and fell to the ground, right? And I think I'll give a shout out to my man Scott O'Neill. I think Scott's brilliant. I say shout out just because I love the fact that he occasionally will email me back, and I'll take that as a win. But
he's definitely listening to this podcast, though. He's definitely
right?
This is his go-to podcast. He wakes up in the morning.
You know what? We gotta when this goes, I'm gonna cut that snippet and send it over to him, right? But like his moves are smart, right? Like think about it. He pulled off stealing Tobias Harris from the Clippers.
Yeah.
Right? Mike Scott's given the minutes too, right? But he pulls off stealing Tobias Harris, who is their leading scorer in the playoffs.
For nothing.
Right? He's like at 15.5 points. I mean, who did he give up, right? He gave up Wilson Chandler. Like, are you kidding me? What was it? Wilson Chandler, Mike Muscala, and Landry Shamet for Tobias Harris and Mike Scott, and then the love of Boban.
Oh man, like, give me some Boban.
Right, like you're all of a sudden. So I remember like people were talking, right? Like, okay, Simmons can't shoot, Butler is streaky, Embiid gets hurt, and then you got Tobias Harris. Right, like all of a sudden you're like, oh right, we've still got this dude, and you've got JJ who's ready to fire off whenever he's open. Right, so he limits any double team that you can bring. I don't know. To me, like, Toronto, I want to see Toronto win. I think they do eventually win, but I don't think it's a cakewalk at any point. I think
I don't think
fourth option is Tobias Harris. Man,
that's a good.
Vinith, yes, Vinith. I mean, you heard Sean say like there's no love for Kawhi. Oh, what is up with that? Like,
what do you mean there's no love for Kawhi? Who doesn't have
no love? I didn't say that.
Let me burn a few.
I just want to say this thing about Kawhi Leonard. He is a beast on offense now. I mean, I used to love him for his defense, but like he's been unstoppable all the 3 games. Just
Definitely.
he would go to wherever he wants to go.
But that's what we want, right? Like if Kawhi goes, we want a victory. Like Toronto would love a victory if Kawhi's gone off. If Kawhi's gone off, and yet you're being held back by like Kyle Lowry can't be scoring this low. I mean, even Siakam has showed up. What is this happening? This Gasol can't stop Embiid. I mean, is this just
Listen, this is a
bad of a
7-game
matchup?
series. This is a 7-game series.
This is a 7-game series. Okay.
The first game, the first game, the Toronto Raptors crushed the Philadelphia
Absolutely, yeah.
76ers. They just crushed them, right? The second game was very close, right? It was, I think, they were like a minute down. They were like, it was a two-point
it was that one possession. Then the foul game happened, and then
And now, they
pass. They've opened a can of pass.
But I think that this game was just weird. This was not it reminds me of the Spurs and Nuggets finals game, right? The finals game. It's not a typical Spurs game.
How did you manage to bring the Spurs back into this
Because we got to talk about the Spurs Nuggets game 7.
No, you don't. Come on.
No, we don't. The Spurs are history, yes. But what did it remind you of?
Of it just not being a typical Toronto game.
Okay.
I'll give them that. I think Toronto is. This is the first time Toronto's facing a punch.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Adversity.
This is again. This is why you hired Nick Nurse, apparently, right? Like
was that like an backhanded comment? Apparently.
No, I'm just saying. Okay, you fired your coach of the year.
Yeah.
Right. But this is where Nick Nurse is supposed to prove his value, right? This is where. Like, what's your change of game plan? Are you going to find a way for, like, Jody Meeks and Jeremy Lin to start scoring? Like, who's going to come and start putting in points? Like, Ibaka isn't doing much right now.
Yeah.
So, and Marc Gasol's old. Like, I don't know why you don't just match Ibaka onto Embiid and let them go one-on-one.
Because he can't stop Embiid.
Nobody can stop Embiid.
That's fine. But
no, I think Gasol does okay.
But let's go back to the old school like Jordan rules idea though, right?
Okay.
Let's make Embiid score 45 points a game and beat me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
That's
If Embiid is going to beat me from the post in 2019 playoffs, awesome. If he can score 50 from on the block and his mid-range and then the occasional 3, awesome. Because that means nobody else in Philly is contributing.
Yeah.
The ball is dead, right? Like it's going into one person. It's a block. Like, why double him at this point? Let's see what he can do.
Yeah.
And if you do, let's put him on his ass and let's make him pay the price.
Yeah, just make him. Yeah, that's a great.
He's like, is his body going to hold up over 7 games of physical basketball?
Yeah.
Versus like right now, he's getting a free run.
I think what you said, the most of what you said made sense is, I mean, the thing that you said which most made sense is that fact that, I mean, they have to let Embiid tire out. Like Embiid can't be getting 33 points and then all these rebounds and kicking it out for JJ Redick and kicking it out for all the shooters. They have to, and that adjustment has to be there. I guess that's where Nick Nurse comes into the picture. Can Toronto adjust?
Yeah, or if you're sending the double, right, send it from Simmons and literally don't rotate. Don't close out on Simmons. Make him have to shoot that thing.
Next, we move on to the Warriors and Rockets. Like that, there's always that one series where like this keeps on coming up against it and they can't ever end up, beating him. It's almost like India-Pakistan in World Cup series. Like Pakistan keeps on every single time. They're like, yes, this time and this time and this time. I think this is like the 4th or 5th time Warriors and Rockets are matching up. And every year they're like, okay, this year we're better. This year we are driven by SAP analytics. This year we're driven by SAP and big data. This year we're driven by flopping and all that.
You just hate on Daryl, aren't you? Hate on Maury.
I'm an analytics guy. At least I pretend to be. But see, Warriors are, in my opinion, I don't think the Warriors are great because they are just great scorers. They are also extremely unselfish. They take smart shots. Plus, they've got Kevin Durant. So that is why I think the Warriors are great. Like it's not.
Oh, we have 3 of the best shooters in history.
Exactly.
Oh, let me be selfish.
But
come on, man.
Exactly right. Like if you shut down Steph Curry, you have
Yeah.
Clay, you have Durant. If you shut down two of them, you still have Clay. If you shut down Clay, then if you can shut down everyone, then that's a different ball game altogether. And
Then you probably don't have anybody who can score on your team.
exactly, like it's the bad boy Pistons all over again.
Shout out to the best NBA team ever.
Whoa.
Ew.
Whoa. Such takes are to be
Second best.
after the Spurs, I guess.
After the Spurs.
Okay, we'll talk about the matchups in a while, but there's a lot of hue and cry about these refereeing decisions and Rockets trying to get fouls instead of making baskets. And Vineet, I'll come to you first. You must have seen Game 1, right? Game 1, I agree, there was a little bit of a... But how nice or how professional do you think it is to make the referees look so bad? And or maybe if you look at the other side, do you think the referees maybe had a little bit of something naughty business going on in the inside? Because some of those falls on James Harden shooting, you could have called them. They really went through his body. So I don't know. What do you make of that little arrangement?
I think I think it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of everything.
As is life.
Yeah, as is life. It's a little bit of everything. I think a lot of people are really kind of tired of James Harden's flops. And I think
shout out to Hoopastani for this. Whenever James Harden flopping is mentioned, we have to shout him out.
Karan. Yeah.
And I always send him an MVP GIF every time he bitches about
that pisses him off to no end. Yes.
Yeah. And I think everyone's just kind of tired of the flops of James Harden. And so I think the referees are being a little bit more like, okay, we're not going to do it anymore for you, and we're going to be a little bit more strict. But then, trying to be more strict, they kind of became extremely strict. So a lot of calls were kind of bad and at the wrong times. So I think, it's basketball, man. You just live with the results. That's what I say. Sean is giving me this look. This guy has never played basketball.
No, no, these guys are fun. That's a tough. The referees, it's just a game right now, right? Jordan had the exact same thing, and I think people forget that, right? Much more physical era, but referencing those bad boy Pistons, right, where they gave it to him and they knocked him down, right? And Harden's I'm going to go back. He's got a mental block. He needs somebody else on his team to score and win the damn first game for him.
Okay.
Right? He needs somebody else. No, and because right now everything is on his shoulders and he knows it and everyone knows it. And so I don't care who you are. You've got 7-foot Kevin Durant with his gargantuan 9 feet long arms, closing out on you. And he's Kevin Durant. He's not Draymond Green, right? Are you going to call a foul on Kevin Durant with the game on the line? Right? Are you going to literally sacrifice another superstar for Harden, right? This is those cases are tough, and Harden's not making himself easier by not attacking the basket, but we've developed a professional basketball game in the U.S. that is driven around 3-pointers and fouls and creating fouls, right? And so he's been getting those calls all year. So, and he hasn't, mind you, right, not against Kevin Durant, but he's been getting those calls. So who's he supposed to, unless you're changing your entire style at the last second. And that's why I'm he's got to go to his teammates. He's got to, Chris Paul has to show up, right? Again, who did they give up for Chris Paul right now that you're sitting there going, man, could they use Lou Williams? How sad is that? And I'm not saying, old Chris Paul's the real deal, right? Younger Chris Paul, I guess I should say. Current old Chris Paul is not there right now, right? Clint Capella isn't going to win you a game. Who are they going to? And D'Antoni is smart, but he's smart to the point where, like I said, where he doesn't have another option, right? And so you've got to talk to Harden about how are you creating action for Harden to come off the ball to get a switch, to get a Draymond on him, and he can attack Draymond, right? Because he's not going to get it when it's in the ISO situation.
Okay.
And even if it's a ball screen, they're just going to go over top the ball screen and they're going to hedge and they're going to trap to get the ball out of Harden's hand, right? So you have to have Chris Paul coming off of a ball screen at the top, and then Harden coming off of a down screen somewhere else to free Harden up. Look at how look.
He's a coach, man. He's a coach. He's not like you.
I'm just saying, you have to think about this in a way that, like, how do you get Harden the ball in the best possible situation?
Yeah.
Because nobody in NBA history is getting the ball with Kevin Durant in front of you like a positive net result.
Yeah.
Like, right, even getting in front of Chris instead of Steph Curry. I want Steph covering James Harden. I even want Clay trying to cover him.
That's a good matchup.
I don't want 7-foot freak of nature Kevin Durant to cover you, because Kevin Durant can win Defensive Player of the Year if he wants.
Yeah. I mean, if he's
Kawhi Leonard has something to say about it.
I'm saying, think about it. If Kevin Durant, and you know that, right? Like, if Kevin Durant said, "Okay, I'm going to flat out play D this year, like all 82 games."
Yeah, that's true.
No.
Like,
I'm not going to score.
I can guard all 5 positions.
I'm only going to score in the fourth quarter.
And then in the fourth quarter, I'm going to score 30, and then that's it.
Which he can do.
Which he can do,
right?
Yeah, he can do that.
And throwing it back to Kawhi, and I know I'm talking a lot here, but shoot, wouldn't you throw Kawhi Leonard at Joel Embiid at some point?
I would, because he would be great at stealing the ball.
He would be that, and Embiid would Embiid would have to win the game in the post. Right? Because there's no way he's going to face up on Kawhi.
Yeah.
There's no way he's going to shoot a 3 on Kawhi. Like, go ahead. You can back down Kawhi all day, and again, I'm going to make you score 30 points by doing 15 drop step layups.
Yeah. And tire you out too. That stuff is tiring.
I'm not going to put you on the free throw line.
Yeah.
But then wouldn't Kawhi also
when you're talking about the Rockets,
yeah.
You know, I think it's very interesting to observe that both James Harden and Kevin Durant were in OKC at one point of time. And,
my God, why do you have to keep bringing that up?
And now they're not.
Now
they're left with Russell Westbrook. And it's called Russell Brickbrook. No, what's that?
I feel like Russell Peters needs to do a skit about Russell Westbrook and use his parents' Russell voice.
Russell, stop shooting.
Because that would be a win.
All right. So Sean, who's your favorite player right now in NBA?
Favorite player to watch? Probably. I mean, it's a push between Durant or LeBron in person. Like, to watch, they're just poetry. I've been really lucky. Like, I live in Boston right now, right? And I've seen LeBron play, I think now 6 times from basically courtside seats.
Did you see him last year in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals?
I was there for Game 7 in Boston. Yeah. My boy Vasu, Cole Carney, called me up and said, "Hey, I got tickets. I'm driving up from New York right now." And we were 10 rows back, and it was pretty unreal behind the Cleveland bench. And It was LeBron is LeBron. I mean, and these guys, when you take basketball as a purely poetic, the ballet of athleticism, there's nothing like those two. I think one of the best games I saw Kevin Durant and what's his name? It's totally Gravis Vasquez. So Kevin Durant and Gravis Vasquez in high school play against Ty Lawson and Mike Beasley in a high school game.
Whoa.
And if you want to talk about 17-year-olds at their best going at it, again, and that's when Kevin Durant was special. These guys know how to finish, and they're passionate. I think Durant is uniquely special, like LeBron, in that their brain. LeBron is super basketball focused, and then he's built out this. I think Kevin's always had multiple interests in life, and it's why he doesn't need to stay with a team. It's why the same thing with LeBron, right? It's a job still to them. Okay. They've always known it was a job, and the way we treat high school ball in the U.S., it's a job. For those guys, so it's always been a job. So why wouldn't I? I'm going to go to where it's going to make the most sense for me versus. So I don't buy into the non-loyal thing. I think all of us have jobs, and nobody yells at you when you leave a company to go somewhere to another company. I don't understand why we yell at a dude for signing somewhere else.
Bucks and Celtics, that series is now 1-1. Celtics in the driver's seat with the home court advantage, but I mean, I've been supporting Celtics since the playoffs because I feel Brad Stevens is an absolute genius of a coach, and he will make the necessary arrangements. But the way the Bucks came back, and
selfish point guards. I mean, I love
true.
selfish point guard. That's
Sean, you are we should have
he's a
Sean
coach. He's a
as
coach.
our part.
No, I'm betting my next guest. I can't have this beat down.
I live in Boston. I'm telling you that. Like,
Because this is the fact. Ashwin loves selfish players. He's a Kobe fan. He buys Kobe's books, and so it's a great. You have looked into the soul of Ashwin in
He has figured me out
in 40 minutes of talking. See that?
That's it. We are betting our next guest. We cannot have this repeat.
Mandatory questions. Do you like OKC?
No, are you gonna argue?
like people who score a lot and can't win.
Exactly. No.
Okay.
Coming back to the Bucks. Coming back to the Bucks, though.
Go back.
Bucks.
Let's go.
Yes.
Let's
Bucks.
go talk about these Celtics Bucks.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
a fun
Yes.
series.
The man from the Celtics. Like, what do you think the Celtics' chances are for like keeping home court?
They're good. I mean, the Celtics are really good. Let's not get that wrong, right? They come at you with so many different prongs that like they won a game and Tatum scored like 6 points, right? Like they can do that. There's so many different levers that Brad Stevens can pull, and he's very knowledgeable about that, right? He's got a smart coaching staff behind him. They all work together, but when they're not selfish, right? And they have two guards who can demand the ball between Rozier and Irving, but when they're moving the ball, I mean, you talk about Horford and you talk about Baines and you're talking about Morris coming off the bench and Jaylen Brown. Oh, and that dude Gordon Hayward, right? Like, who's all of a sudden playing back like he was in Utah. You have a very scary team, and it's just if they're willing to play that way for 48 minutes or if they lose focus. Because they don't actually, let's be honest, they can play that way for 24 minutes and still win a game. Yeah. Because they have so many different levers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, was there something that you saw in between the game 1 and game 2? Because game 1, like I thought Celtics absolutely came with a proper plan. Like they knew this is what we're going to do. We're going to hit them hard and then keep that pressure on. But in game 2, maybe a little lackadaisical. Coach, your thoughts?
I don't know if it was the coach. I mean, I think Giannis decided he needed to be Giannis, right? I think it's the same hurdle that like Harden's facing, right? You have to step into a role, and you have to attack. And Giannis, I mean, let's be honest, Giannis can't shoot great either. He's not Simmons level, but he can't But he decided I still need to pull the trigger, but then he still attacked, right?
Yeah.
He went at Boston and made them collapse. And because Boston does great, I don't know how much you guys watch college hoops, but like the Boston approach to Giannis is very similar to how UVA plays defense, which is gap defense, right? When Giannis gets the ball, they all sink and they're willing to give up everything else in the world, right? What happened for Milwaukee was Middleton starts hitting shots, right? And all of a sudden you can't sink quite as much as you did, which opens up lanes, right? And Giannis recognized it and went right at their jugular with it, right? Bledsoe still isn't playing well. I don't think he's playing awesome right now, at least in this series. Lopez is Lopez. George Hill is a winner. I hate to say, like, everybody's going to say, like, it sounds strange, right? But George Hill right now looks a lot like what Steve Kerr and Robert Horry did to an extent, right? Like, he's been to 2 straight finals, right? He's been there, right? And I'm not saying he was the man, but I'm saying he's a locker room presence that's like, hey, this is what you need to do for us to win. I've seen it, and everyone believes him, right?
Also, he was a reason why we had the J.R. Smith moment.
Okay. Right, he learned, right? He learned. He saw both sides, right? Because I think it's funny. Like, everybody wants to talk about how Kyrie has, like, the most winning percentage of a playoff player ever, right? They forget that Kyrie didn't make the playoffs until LeBron shoots up, right? Like, there's this whole losing era of people forget about Kyrie, which winning does, right? But George Hill is similar, right? 2 straight years, 2 straight playoff runs. He's around. I don't think Connaughton's played well yet. I don't think, and they don't have Brogdon. I think, I don't know what the status report is on Brogdon, but man, he can go and he can shut down. Like, if you put Brogdon on the wing, it also changes the series.
I think Brogdon was part of the 50, 40, 90 club before he got injured. So
he can go, right?
Yeah.
But I think the coaching adjustments are going to be on both sides. I think it's going to be very interesting. I think this is again why Brad Stevens is considered a great coach, but he gets a lot of love for not having figured out a way to get past LeBron. Right? Like in the same way the Toronto coach got fired for the exact same situation. Right? Like
If you had
you
to
know,
pick between if you had to pick between Coach Bud and Brad Stevens, who would you pick?
oh, I think Brad Stevens is brilliant. Like there's no doubt that he's out thinking people, right? Like you just have to look at what he did at Butler, right? Like he crushed people with a small market college team. Um, and that's the other part, right? He's got the buy-in of Gordon Hayward for the last 10 years, right? Like and and Gordon Hayward's like, as much as he wants to look like he's in a boy band, is a 6'9", Nick Lachey who can ball. And
You just call him Nick Lachey.
I mean, I guess it's India, right? Is he a 6'9" Nick Jonas then? I don't know.
we haven't adopted Nick Jonas yet. Please stop passing him yet.
Yeah, come on, man. All those magazines are ready to crown him. He's gonna be challenging Modi next, is what you guys are gonna see. So, but I think it'll be interesting. I don't. Do you need a phenomenal coach to get past Coach Stevens? No. I mean, LeBron has shown it. I'm not knocking Lou. Lou's a good person controller. He isn't like the X and O's genius, but he did keep everyone happy, right? People weren't upset when Toronto, Coach Bud. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna. It's like what we saw, right? We were talking about Tobias Harris earlier, right? It's gonna be if Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, and Brooke Lopez hit shots. That's the series right there.
See, one thing I've learned about basketball is that like usually the team that has the best player kind of wins for the most part, and Giannis is the best player in that entire series, and he's not playing with scrubs. He's playing with a good team, so that's why I'm always biased to the team that has the better player. And it's not like it's just a matter of will this better player step up, right? And I think Giannis has that in him. He showed it in this last game where he's like, no, I really want to win this series. So I'm gonna place my bets on Milwaukee in 6.
The other one is, this is not the hardest thing that Giannis has ever done, right? Like when you look at his life path, right? Like this isn't like pressure to him.
No,
right?
Of course
like,
not.
My man's battled everything coming out of the streets and getting out of Greece, right? Like didn't have a suit till like
it's not a fake hood story, It's not like one of those fake hood stories. Yeah, I was born in the hood.
This dude didn't have anything. This dude didn't have anything given to him, and he got shipped up to Milwaukee, right? Like where it's cold and there really aren't that many people of color hanging around. And yeah, I mean he's awesome. And I think part of it's going to be like where's the debate of how much Kyrie tries to take over, how much Rozier tries to take over. Does Rozier get people involved? Because Rozier, more than anybody, I think gets really excited about putting in points and wanting to, because he's still playing for another contract.
Yes, exactly.
He needs to start somewhere else.
Yep.
So he's trying to show out. But on the Boston connection, you're forgetting that Giannis's man, Pat Connaughton's from here. Right? Connaughton's from Boston. He's going to be playing in some friendly confines. They could use him knocking down some shots right now.
Okay.
So that might be interesting. I would love to see Pat Connaughton have a homecoming where he goes off.
Yeah, that'd be
good. We will see if that happens.
I know no one really cares about the Nuggets and Blazers, so let's move on.
But yeah, I mean, still, Nuggets, I think it's 1-1, so Portland has home court.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what the Nuggets offense is about. I mean, at least I know that, Portland is all about Lillard and McCollum making their shots, and there's a little bit of Enes Kanter with his left separated shoulder and a little bit of little post play. But how do you see this?
Can we go over the fact that just real quick that Enes Kanter got the NBA Turkey social media dude fired?
Oh, I love that.
Like, come on,
absolutely, that is boss. That is boss.
That's a pretty boss move.
Yeah, that's a boss move, right there. Yeah.
Like the fact that he trolls them hard enough, the NBA has to fire somebody on the other side of the world.
Exactly. Right? That is brilliant. Yeah. I mean, I think
That's a win. I think that's.
I mean, what I did like about not that part. What I did like about it was I think some of the Nuggets fans were trolling him, saying, "Go back to Turkey." Oh no, you can't. And then he got a little emotional. He's like,
I
"Oh,
think there's crossing a line." No, I think there's a lot of Americans who don't know where that line is sometimes when it comes to like chanting a player. I'll give Russell Westbrook credit there, right? Like some of these guys are put in really tough spots, and I think the NBA is starting to figure that out. Like I think every workplace is like, where's the lines on inclusion versus being able to speak your mind, right?
yeah."
So I was happy to see Enes Kanter get something, and I was happy to see the NBA back up their player and not say, oh, you just have to live with it, right? Like I think they did, and the same thing with the Westbrook situation. They didn't like. I think in that regard. Sorry, that's a side note of.
No. I mean, we did discuss it, and
I don't know. I just went to my first IPL match this year, right? So I don't know how nasty the crowds can be. I mean, I was in Delhi and I watched CSK dominate, and so.
No, I think Indian in general are very peaceful people.
No, that's not true at all.
We are racist in a very quiet tone.
No, we are racist in Hindi, and the foreigners don't understand
somebody's
Hindi.
Going to call you on and call into a fight, right? Like.
No. I mean, he didn't. I think all crowds they exhibit that mob behavior that you can't. You're like in a mob, you have a mask, so you can do something.
Mind you, I'm still humored, right? Like the Delhi Capitals had Elena Beard, 2-time WNBA Defensive Player of the Year, hanging out. She's in the crowd at the Delhi Capitals game, and at no part do they acknowledge she's there.
Well, I don't think anybody follows the WNBA in India, do they?
That's fair. That's very fair too. They may have no clue who she is.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure. But I'm sure. Like, how tall is Elena Beard?
6 feet.
6 feet. Okay.
She's a 6 foot African American woman walking around Delhi. Come on, man. You're telling me
that's not a very. I mean, Delhi is a little messed up. Let's not. Plus, that name Delhi Capitals. What the hell does that even mean? Delhi Capitals. Let's not even go there.
On the other hand, I do think that India will produce a professional WNBA player before they produce a professional men's player.
Oh fuck! I don't know how to. Like, inshallah, definitely. Anything. Anything.
I just think the way the games are laid out and the expectation and the way the approach, I think there's a lot of growth, and I think there's a diverse amount of girls playing versus the guys playing in there. But going back to what the Nuggets offense is, what's the beauty of the Nuggets is that Jamal Murray could go off for 50 points. At any given time, like you have no clue where it's coming from. Like he wakes up one day, and all of a sudden he's averaging like 12 points, and all of a sudden he hits 50, and you're like, "What just happened?" Right? And because their offense really is like it's Jokic, right? It's Joker's gonna get it, and he's gonna be Magic Johnson, and he's gonna make ridiculous passes at the fake center. And
you just call him a fake center.
How many, like in the truest term of a center, how many times do you see Jokic score with his back to the basket?
Not many times, I guess.
He does, right? Like he's even more of a stretch four than he is a center.
Well, he starts with the back to his basket, and then he just turns around and puts a nice little like.
He like walks away from the basket, right?
Yeah. It's not even like a turnaround jumper. It's a turnaround and a shot. It's not. He doesn't even jump. He just like turns around. He's like so tall.
I'm gonna face up.
I think this is his vertical.
This is pretty much
Mason. On the other hand, Mason Plumlee can actually get off the ground.
Oh
surprisingly. And that's fun. Will Barton can go off. They've got guys that can play. Trey Lyles, but who aren't even in the games right now. But it's really just if Jamal Murray goes off or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And Jamal Murray is what is he? 21. He's young.
He's very young. 21. Yeah.
I mean,
21 or 23, one of those, yeah.
I feel like he was just at Kentucky. I feel like in my brain, like now I have to look it up because I met him at the Hall of Fame when he was up there for the induction.
I think he played in the rookie game like 2 years ago. So
22 and 69 days at Kitchener, Canada, right? So Kitchener, Ontario. I mean he's young. Like this isn't even the best Nuggets we're going to see over the next few years. Like those two are just going to get better around each other.
And their 1-2 game is really, really good. They have a good connection. I think they could be if they keep their egos aside. I think they could be kind of like the next
Shaq and Kobe.
No, they're very good. They really, you can see that they can really kind of, because Jokic is also a good passer, just the way Karl Malone was. Karl Malone was a very good
Great passer.
I mean, and Jokic is what, 24?
Yeah.
He just turned 24.
Yeah.
So they've got loads. Can you imagine if the Nuggets had somehow traded for Tobias Harris instead?
Oh, man.
I'm just saying, I can't get over the fact.
I was just thinking about it yesterday. Is that if somehow the Nuggets get Klay Thompson, I think that would be a killer team.
I think. I mean, I'll be curious who they draft. I think that's going to be very interesting for their squad.
Because they have money, right?
They have money, but people aren't gonna go sign in Denver. That's not like a tier 1 destination.
That's true.
NBA has shifted in that it's not just about money; it's about money outside of the court, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So where can you build your brand? Social media has taught us that. So it's why the Knicks will always be in the conversation. But all of a sudden, Brooklyn has shifted that, right? Brooklyn is now, it's in New York City, and they have a shot of signing free agents because they can actually win.
Coach, I want to ask you something. You think KD will consider the Knicks as on equal terms with the Nets, maybe? Because that is something Vineet has dismissed outright. He's like, Brooklyn is not New York. Please don't talk about that.
Brooklyn is not New York.
Brooklyn's not New York. What are you talking about, man?
Sorry, man.
Brooklyn is... Do you not know Biggie Smalls? You deserve to get smacked by P. Diddy, right?
I mean,
have you not watched any 90s rap videos?
Is P. Diddy living in Brooklyn now?
Probably.
No.
He probably still has a house there.
He doesn't live in Brooklyn anymore. People go from Brooklyn to New York City. That's how it is. The poor people from New York City. The poor people from New York City go to Brooklyn. That's how it works.
That's like 30 years ago. That's 30 years
ago.
Come
on, man.
Now it's every hipster in the world.
Yeah, hipsters are poor. That's the whole point. That's why they're hipsters.
Not in New York. They're fake poor in New York. Come on. To live in Brooklyn, you still like a one bedroom.
I'm just saying compared to the people living in Manhattan.
Wow.
You're like, wow, how much was that?
What?
So,
okay.
No, I don't think KD fits with D'Angelo Russell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think their games match, right? Russell needs to have ball, right?
Yeah.
And I think he's at a point where he's not going to give up the ball, right? Like I don't think he goes there. I think if he goes to New York, I think that Kyrie KD combo is very, very fun, and they both will make a lot of money.
Kyrie KD / Zion Williamson, maybe? Or is that
Zion's
too much?
Fun. Zion is fun. Yeah, I mean, it would be a good spot because Zion wouldn't have to be the man, right, in that situation. I think Zion's developing it, but I don't think he's like this one-on-one, I can break you down yet guy.
Okay.
In that regard, you're looking at the other two kids in the draft.
Barrett and...
Right.
Reddish? Not Reddish.
Not Reddish. Reddish is out of Duke. Reddish is very good. When he wants to go, he can go. This kid from Murray State, right? But I think KD Kyrie in New York looks really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be good for basketball. I think it's good for like the game. I think you're going to see some playground pickup stuff happen.
Okay.
I think it's New York. I think New York needs to have, and it fits with the Knicks being, for some reason or not, they've never, like, because the Celtics have always been like the premier on the East, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks get to be the bad guys. I'll go back. So I referenced John Starks earlier.
Oh,
could you not imagine like that, like this two hated athletes in Kyrie and KD going to New York? Everybody hates them now.
Yeah.
Right? And
everybody hates the Knicks.
Running show. Right? Like all of a sudden you're like, we don't even like the color combination of the Knicks, right? Like who wants to wear orange and blue like that, right? The only thing is like coach's wife is of Indian descent. That's the only reason Ball is Bay should be loving him, right? Natasha Sen is Indian, right? Like that's the only Knicks connection. Like
I mean, I don't think the Knicks have been good during any of our times. Like they were.
Well, I mean, the Amari Stoudemire thing was.
I mean, they were not really good.
Amari Mello for a little bit was fun.
Was fun.
Right?
Yeah.
Amari gets hurt. Mello decides he doesn't have to play defense. and they need to buckle over for everything. I mean that right. I mean the Nuggets took a while to recover from losing Melo too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
10
like,
years.
somehow nobody won in the Melo trade.
It took them 10 years.
Right, like I actually want to take a look at that. Right, like who went to the playoffs between Melo and the Nuggets in that era, and what happened? Like which team really, which organization really won in a trade of a superstar? I don't know. I would love to see Kyrie KD. I think it would be really fun for basketball, and it would set up this really fun dichotomy of Ball LeBron on the other coast, and then you still got the Splash Brothers, right?
Wait,
Like
did you say ball like Lonzo Ball and LeBron?
yeah, because I mean
Oh
that's
my
what it
God.
would look like, right? A point guard and a wing,
I
right?
think Kawhi is going to the Lakers.
I'll go to the Clippers.
I don't think Kawhi leaves Toronto.
Ah.
Not after this playoff run.
I mean, he just looked
I think like
really disappointed yesterday. Like, I don't know if you
he did, but I think that helps them. I don't think he leaves off of like losing, and I don't think he like right now he's too invested. If they've got knocked out in the first round, cool. I think he's invested, and Toronto's just such a great city. It fits his MO. Like Toronto is such a hockey city that loves basketball that like there's a 50-50 shot people don't notice the 6'7" man in dreads walking around Toronto. Right? Like he can go into a restaurant and there'd be like a whole bunch of hockey loving white people who would never know who he was.
Wow.
That's fair. That makes sense, yeah.
There's a little extra
So like I can
features.
see that low key. I know I'm throwing all this stuff out. People are like, God, I hope the wrong people aren't listening to this. But I don't know how many white listeners you have in Toronto. But
We will give you those numbers pretty soon. The breakdown,
will be
by
shared very soon.
by demographics and
So we'll have a quick rapid fire. Let's go. Favorite basketball player of all time?
Michael Jordan,
Okay, Kobe or LeBron?
LeBron,
Lakers or Boston?
what?
I think I gotta say Celtics.
Celtics? Okay. Will Chamberlain or Shaquille O'Neal?
Shaq.
Shaq? Oh my God.
Only questions, no clarifications, please.
Okay.
Shaq, you know, yeah. Yo, young Shaq at when he had 2% body fat, unstoppable.
All right, fair enough. All right, if you had to build a team today, who would you start your team with?
Of current age, like
Right now,
people
yeah.
Right.
Giannis.
Giannis. Well, that's it. That's the end of the rapid fire. 5
It was
questions.
pretty rapid. Coach, one last question. I mean,
Yeah.
You've interacted a lot with John Wooden, and John Wooden, like legendary in all circles. What is something that he's told you that has stuck with you all this while? Like something that you tell everyone.
The Wooden stuff. I think the stuff that people forget is that Wooden was a master of relationships.
Okay.
I'll say this, right? Like basketball is basketball, and there's so many ways to cut basketball, and there's no single way that necessarily works. It's how you deal with people, and I think John Wooden and his Pyramid of Success really felt that way, right? John Wooden had a young man named Lou Alcindor who was converting to Islam, right? In a time in the late 60s in America when people did not like it, right? Muhammad Ali was getting banned, etc. And he takes a young guy named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? Or as he's converting his name, and he stays and creates a relationship, an old white man from Indiana, creates a relationship with Lou Alcindor. Like that's what makes him, and at the same time he can create a relationship with Bill Walton, right? Like two very different personalities. And I think that's the biggest thing is he treated each of his players like they were a person and not as a piece of a puzzle, right? And then the puzzle came together when you had all these great pieces. And I think Coach Wooden was tough. Everything I know about him, Coach Sweek, like he threw Coach Sweek out of a gym. My coach is the only person John Wooden's thrown out of anything. There's a whole chapter in his books dedicated to it, so it's kind of funny. But it speaks volumes. Like I'm not saying he was like, but he treated everybody with dignity, and I think we started to see the loss of that in coaching, especially at the younger levels, right? Like I have a great mentor named Kevin Sutton, who used to be the head coach at Montverde Academy and is assistant coach right now at Rhode Island, and Kevin he said your players should be your living trophies as an extension of that Woodenism, right? Like we don't get much as coaches, but those people who live on, those are your living trophies. They represent who you are, and that's what you win in life. And I think it's those types of the moments that we forget that basketball creates, right? Like, why is Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson so tight still, right? Like, why are they still so cool around each other? Because there's a relationship. Like, Jeff Van Gundy clearly yelled and flipped out and ran around the court, right? Like a madman at times. But his players all knew he loved him, and his players all respected him for it, right? Like, again, look at Jeff Van Gundy. In what way do you ever look at Jeff Van Gundy and go, oh yeah, that guy's a baller? But every one of his players, right, was cool with him, right? And I think that's kind of the, we're seeing that with Brad Stevens. We're seeing that um, there's a relationship that has to exist. And I think you can be tough on people, but as long as they have to know you love them, you have to actually love them, right? You have to actually care. And I think that was one of the last things that Elena and I were talking about when we were in Delhi a few weeks ago was when we had a coaches clinic. We were talking so much about that care. Like, so many coaches in India right now haven't been taught that part. It just hasn't been part of the culture of, like, you can learn the X's and O's. I can teach you a 1-3-1 zone. I can teach you a 2-3. I can teach you a matchup. But hey, your kid has to buy into it, right? Like, if your kid doesn't actually, and they have to see that you're fallible, right? Like, I have constantly told my players, yo, that's my bad. I picked the wrong defense today. Yo, I gave us the wrong scout on that kid. So here's how we're going to fix it. And that trust is huge because they're going, oh yeah, we can do that, right? I referenced that we played against DeMatha with Oladipo and Jerry Grant. I had a team of 6-foot white kids from the suburbs, and we beat that team, right? Why? Because my kids were like, I'm like, here's how we're going to do it, and I think this is going to work, right?
They bought it.
But then you coach till the end. Like, we called a timeout with 45 seconds left, knowing we were going to win the game. And I called it just so that I could keep telling my kids, okay, now is not the time to dance and celebrate, right? Like, we're going to beat a great team. Don't act like jerks. Like, you still have to keep coaching. And I think that's what you see more in the college level. I think it's why John Calipari is so successful. People can talk all the smack they want, and there's rumors about Calipari. There's a reason kids go to play for him. It's because people say he cares about his players, right? John Wall will vouch. Anthony Davis vouches, right? Kitty Cat vouches. These guys all vouch for their coach. Whereas there's players who go to, why didn't Lehigh make the jump after CJ McCollum goes to the NBA? He's not vouching every day for his coach, right? He's not saying, yo, this is where you got. And so that's my translation. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but I think when you talk about Woodenism, you're talking about building relationships that last and that you can coach hard but you have to coach earnestly and love a kid versus just yelling at him because you think you're going to get paid.
Okay. So one last question, coach. I mean, I think this was all the.
This is the third last question.
Like all that.
He's got shit to do.
Yeah, I know. I'm totally missing lunch today, but it's good.
No, we'll just wrap it up. Your Mount Rushmore of coaches.
John Wooden. Does it have to be pro or college or anywhere?
Your thing there's not.
You're an Indian podcast asking about Mount Rushmore. At least I know Mount Rushmore. So
the NBA fans know what Mount Rushmore, because I think it was all the craze last year. They're like, who's your?
So John Wooden, Red Auerbach, Phil Jackson, Dean Smith, Mike Krzyzewski. I'm going to throw 5 on there.
Oh, which is this Rushmore? I don't know about this. You're
only
allowed 4.
I just gave you 5, and you're going to live with it. You know.
That's fair.
I just don't think you can talk basketball without talking about those 5 guys, and how they encapsulated the game. I think it goes back just what I was saying, like relationships, right? Doug Collins had Michael Jordan. Phil Jackson wins with Michael Jordan, right? How do you manage? Phil Jackson manages to win with Kobe and Shaq, right? Where some people couldn't. Right? How many times? I think an important thing to always remember is like how many times Kobe missed the playoffs. Right? People are freaking out. LeBron missed it, right? And it's like the second time he's ever missed the playoffs. So, I think all of those factors.
Thank you once again, Sean. Like we will of course see you once again. Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm excited, and like I said, I definitely want to connect you guys more and see what else we can do. I think you guys are doing something fun here, and I think there's a lot of people who want to talk to you guys. So this will be good.
Awesome.
Good times, my friends.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
a lot for your
All
time.
right.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.